Welcome back to Myths Unraveled. Like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. Mammon is the embodiment of greed, a force that permeates human consciousness with the relentless pursuit of wealth, power, and material possessions. He is not merely a demon who hoards gold or tempts individuals with treasures, but the very spirit of materialism itself, a corrupting influence that twists desires and places value on accumulation over virtue, status over substance, and indulgence over integrity. Mammon's essence lies in the insatiable hunger he inspires, a craving that devours everything in its path: morality, relationships, peace of mind, leaving only an empty yearning for more. His presence in a story is not just an antagonist to individuals, but a malevolent force that can infect entire societies, weaving greed into the very fabric of human life. To understand Mammon is to understand how greed operates at every level of existence. He is not merely a figure who tempts a man with gold. He is the whisper that tells a child their worth depends on what they own, the drive that compels a merchant to cheat, the ambition that pushes a ruler to wage war for resources. Mammon's power lies in his ability to make the material seem paramount. Under his influence, the soul becomes secondary, a mere tool or casualty in the quest for wealth. This is where his true corruption begins, not in the gold itself, but in the shift of values that places material gain above all else. Individuals under Mammon's influence begin to see the world through a distorted lens, one where success is measured in coins, properties, luxuries, and power. Love, compassion, loyalty, and truth are all weighed against the balance of profit and loss. Relationships are transactional. Human worth is calculated. The very concept of contentment becomes alien, as Mammon instills the belief that there is never enough, that satisfaction lies always in the next acquisition, the next deal, the next conquest. This eternal hunger ensures that those who follow Mammon are forever trapped in pursuit, never able to rest, always fearing loss, and thus driven deeper into his grasp. One of Mammon's most insidious traits is how he cloaks greed in virtue. To many, the pursuit of wealth can appear noble, a sign of hard work, ambition, and providence. Under Mammon's guidance, greed masquerades as diligence, avarice as success, hoarding as security. He convinces his followers that their desires are justified, even righteous, and that prosperity is a sign of divine favor or personal worth. This deception is key to his influence, as it blinds individuals to the rot growing within. They do not see their moral decay because they believe themselves virtuous in their accumulation. They do not feel guilt in their exploitation because they believe wealth is the natural reward of the strong, the clever, the worthy. Mammon's reach extends into every corner of life, from the poorest beggar dreaming of riches to the wealthiest king seeking more. His seduction is not reserved for any one class or station. He tempts with the promise that more will bring safety, happiness, and fulfillment. Yet under his dominion, even the richest remain impoverished in spirit. The gold they grasp cannot fill the void within. For Mammon's promise is a lie. Wealth brings not peace, but chains, binding the soul ever tighter to the world's fleeting pleasures and fears. In societies where Mammon reigns, the very culture bends to his will. Markets become altars, and coins become sacraments. Justice is sold to the highest bidder, and laws are written to protect wealth, not people. The poor are not seen as fellow humans, but as failures, obstacles, or tools to be used. Compassion becomes weakness, and generosity is suspect. In such a world, Mammon does not need to appear. His work is done through the systems he corrupts, the hearts he hardens, and the minds he blinds. Greed becomes normalized, even celebrated, and those who resist are outcasts, dreamers, or fools. Yet, despite the pervasiveness of Mammon's influence, his followers are never at peace. The wealth they amass cannot shield them from the fear he instills, fear of loss, of envy, of inadequacy. Mammon teaches that one must guard what they have, that others seek to take it, that life is a competition where only the rich survive. This fear breeds isolation, distrust, and ruthlessness. The wealthy become prisoners of their own treasures, unable to enjoy them, for they see threats everywhere. Mammon's gift is poisoned, turning joy into paranoia, freedom into bondage. In a narrative, Mammon can appear in many forms: a suave merchant offering fortunes, a silent force corrupting a city's soul, a whisper in the ear of a king, or even as the gold itself, glinting with promises it can never keep. His influence is subtle, often unnoticed until it is too late. Characters might begin with noble intentions, seeking wealth to help others or secure a future, only to find themselves changed, their dreams twisted into selfish desires. The story of Mammon is not just about external temptation, but internal transformation, the slow erosion of values, the creeping dominance of greed, and the ultimate realization that what they sought has destroyed what they truly needed. Resisting Mammon requires immense strength, not of body, but of spirit. It requires contentment with little, trust in what cannot be bought, and the courage to walk away from easy gains. In stories, those who break free from Mammon's grasp often do so at great cost, sacrificing wealth, status, or even their lives to reclaim their souls. Yet in doing so, they find something Mammon can never offer: peace, freedom, and truth. Mammon's role, as the embodiment of greed, is thus central to any exploration of human desire and the moral choices that define us. He is a force that reveals what people truly value, exposing the fragility of their principles and the strength of their convictions. Through Mammon, stories can delve into the nature of corruption, not just in high places, but in the heart of every person who believes that more is the path to happiness. His is a power that cannot be defeated by swords or spells, but only by the awakening of the soul to a higher truth, that worth is not measured in gold, but in love, integrity, and the courage to resist the easy path. Mammon's influence extends far beyond the individual, infiltrating the very structures of power that govern societies. Where there is authority, wealth, and ambition, Mammon sows the seeds of corruption, weaving greed into the heart of institutions that once stood for justice, wisdom, or the common good. In his grasp, power becomes a tool, not for service but for dominance, and leadership devolves into a means of hoarding wealth rather than uplifting people. The demon of greed is never content with tempting a single soul. His true strength lies in corrupting entire systems, bending rulers, merchants, priests, and judges to his will, until all that remains is a world governed by avarice. In the courts of kings and emperors, Mammon whispers promises of eternal dominion through the accumulation of riches. Rulers, once chosen to guide their people, begin to view their subjects not as individuals, but as resources, taxed, exploited, and sacrificed for the expansion of personal wealth. Under Mammon's influence, the priorities of governance shift from the well-being of the populace to the swelling of the treasury. Wars are waged not for justice or defense, but for gold, land, and control of trade. The suffering of the masses is dismissed as necessary collateral in the pursuit of profit. Mammon corrupts the noble ideals of leadership, turning kings into tyrants and guardians into predators. Political corruption is one of Mammon's most potent tools. He infiltrates councils, senates, and courts, transforming once honorable deliberations into marketplaces where decisions are bought and sold. Bribes become the language of law, and policies favor the wealthy elite, while the poor are left voiceless and oppressed. Under Mammon's gaze, the laws of the land are twisted, tailored to protect the interests of the rich and powerful, while justice becomes a commodity only the affluent can afford. Mammon thrives in this climate, feeding on the decay of institutions, reveling in the erosion of trust and the rise of cynicism. Religious institutions, too, are not spared from Mammon's grasp. In temples and churches, where the divine was once honored, gold becomes the true object of worship. Clergy, seduced by the comforts and status wealth can bring, begin to preach prosperity instead of piety, promising salvation for donations, favor for tithes. Sacred texts are interpreted to justify luxury, and spiritual leaders become merchants in holy garb. Mammon perverts the sacred, turning places of worship into dens of profit, where faith is measured not by devotion, but by the weight of coin. The divine message of compassion and humility is lost, replaced by the glorification of abundance and the denigration of poverty as a sign of divine disfavor. Commerce, the lifeblood of civilization, is utterly transformed under Mammon's dominion. What begins as trade, an exchange meant to benefit both parties, becomes a ruthless pursuit of monopoly and exploitation. Merchants, once valued for their service and goods, become consumed by the desire to dominate markets, to crush competition, and to amass fortunes at any cost. Mammon fosters an environment where deceit, usury, and fraud are not only tolerated, but admired. Success is measured solely by profit, and ethical concerns are discarded as impediments to growth. Workers are dehumanized, reduced to numbers and costs, their labor exploited for the enrichment of distant owners, who see only the bottom line. In cities ruled by Mammon's creed, every aspect of life is touched by the stench of greed. Education becomes a privilege of the wealthy, designed to maintain the status quo and perpetuate cycles of power. Health is commodified, with the poor left to suffer while the rich grow fat on luxury. Art and culture, once expressions of the soul, are harnessed for profit, stripped of meaning, created only to sell. Even nature is not safe, as forests are razed, rivers poisoned, and lands despoiled in the relentless pursuit of resources. Under Mammon, nothing is sacred, and everything has a price. The leaders in such societies, whether political, religious, or economic, become avatars of Mammon's will. They do not see themselves as servants of the people, but as rulers entitled to plunder. Their wealth insulates them from the consequences of their actions, allowing them to live in palaces, while the streets below teem with hunger and despair. They believe their riches are a sign of their superiority, a justification for their dominance. Mammon feeds this delusion, nurturing their pride, their fear of loss, their insatiable desire for more. These leaders may speak of duty and honor, but their actions betray them, revealing the truth. They are bound to Mammon, slaves to the very wealth they worship. The corruption that Mammon spreads through power structures does not remain hidden. It seeps into every level of society, creating a culture where greed is normalized, even celebrated. The young grow up idolizing the rich, aspiring not to virtue but to affluence. Acts of generosity are seen as weakness, compassion as foolishness. The social fabric frays as trust erodes, and communities fracture under the weight of inequality. Crime flourishes, as those left behind by the system seek survival through any means, while the powerful fortify their positions, building walls of gold to shield themselves from the world they have helped destroy. Mammon's influence also breeds conflict, both within and between societies. When wealth becomes the highest good, competition turns violent. Nations clash over resources. Corporations sabotage each other, and individuals betray friends and family for a share of the spoils. Peace is impossible in a world where greed reigns, for Mammon thrives on strife, knowing that in chaos there is always profit to be made. He delights in the downfall of empires, the ruin of great cities, the collapse of once proud institutions, all brought low by their own insatiable hunger for more. Yet even in the darkest corners of Mammon's domain, there remains a spark of resistance. Not all succumb to his lure. There are those who see the rot and refuse to partake, who seek to restore balance and integrity. These few, often marginalized or ridiculed, stand as a testament to the human spirit's capacity for defiance. Their struggle is immense, for they fight not only against the structures of power, but against the very culture that Mammon has shaped. But in their refusal to bow to greed, they embody the hope that even the most corrupted systems can be challenged, that Mammon's grip is not unbreakable. A story centered on Mammon's corruption of power structures could follow such figures, charting their journey through a world dominated by greed. It could explore the choices they face, the temptations they resist, and the sacrifices they make. It could delve into the nature of power itself, questioning whether it can ever be wielded without corruption, whether true justice can exist in a world where everything is for sale. Through their eyes, the reader would witness the cost of Mammon's reign, not just in gold and blood, but in the erosion of what it means to be human. Mammon's corruption is not merely a force of evil, it is a mirror, reflecting the darkest impulses of those who crave power. His presence forces a reckoning, a confrontation with the values that guide societies and the individuals who lead them. In his shadow, the true cost of greed is laid bare, and the question is asked, what will we sacrifice for wealth and what is left when all else is gone? Mammon's true power lies not only in his ability to corrupt societies and structures, but in the deep psychological toll he exacts on individuals. His influence seeps into the mind like a slow-acting poison, turning desires into obsessions and ambitions into shackles. While many might envision greed as a flamboyant lust for riches, Mammon works more subtly, embedding a relentless craving that consumes the heart, warps perception, and ultimately dismantles the soul from within. His domain is not only over gold or possessions, but over thoughts, fears, and the invisible cravings that drive human behavior. The initial lure of Mammon is often sweet and deceptively simple. He whispers that a little more wealth will bring security, that an extra coin will grant comfort, that possessions will offer peace. This is where the descent begins, not in overt corruption, but in the small compromises, the justifications, the rationalizations that wealth is necessary, that material success is a reflection of one's worth. Under Mammon's subtle influence, the mind begins to equate wealth with safety, respect, even love. To lose wealth becomes a kind of death, a loss of identity. To gain it becomes the ultimate affirmation. As Mammon tightens his grip, the desire for wealth morphs into an all-consuming force. The individual no longer seeks money or possessions as means to an end, but as ends in themselves. They begin to believe that only through accumulation can they attain happiness, and yet, no amount ever feels sufficient. This is one of Mammon's cruelest tricks. His gifts never satisfy. The joy of gain is fleeting, quickly replaced by a gnawing need for more. Each new acquisition brings a brief high, followed by a deeper craving. The more the individual chases wealth, the more hollow they become, and the more desperately they try to fill that void with things that cannot truly nourish the soul. Over time, this relentless pursuit takes a heavy toll on the mind. The individual becomes anxious, paranoid, convinced that their wealth is under constant threat. They fear loss more than they ever enjoyed gain. Every relationship becomes suspect. Friends are potential rivals. Loved ones might seek to share or take from their hoard. Mammon breeds isolation, whispering that trust is dangerous, that generosity is weakness, that sharing dilutes power. The individual withdraws, erecting walls both physical and emotional, their world shrinking to the size of their bank account and the treasures they can count. This isolation is not simply social but spiritual. The more one succumbs to Mammon, the more they lose touch with the parts of themselves that once valued love, kindness, and connection. Their sense of purpose narrows, their imagination dims. They stop dreaming of what they could create or give, thinking only of what they might lose or gain. Even in moments of apparent triumph, closing a profitable deal, acquiring a coveted possession, there is no true joy, only relief, and the immediate onset of the next craving. The soul becomes trapped in a cycle of endless hunger, and with each turn, the chains tighten. Betrayal becomes another hallmark of Mammon's influence. As the individual's values erode, so too does their loyalty. They are willing to deceive, to manipulate, even to harm those around them in the name of profit. Family ties fray, friendships dissolve, partnerships collapse under the weight of suspicion and self-interest. Under Mammon's rule, love becomes a transaction, trust a liability. The individual, now fully enslaved, cannot see beyond their own gain. Blind to the wreckage they leave behind, they justify every action, no matter how cruel, as necessary, believing that the end, security, respect, status, sanctifies the means. The psychological torment deepens as the individual begins to measure their very existence in terms of wealth, success or failure, joy or sorrow, worthiness or shame. All are tied to the state of their possessions. A bad investment or a lost fortune is not just a setback. It is an existential crisis, a shattering of identity, Mammon ensures that their self-image is bound inseparably to their material standing, so that even in times of prosperity, they live in fear, knowing that one mistake could strip them of everything they believe defines them. This fear is not just financial. It is a deep soul-level terror of being nothing without wealth. Even those who recognize the chains too late find it almost impossible to break free. Mammon's grip is strongest on those who try to leave, who sense that their obsession has destroyed them. He knows how to use fear to keep them bound. Fear of poverty, of insignificance, of vulnerability. He convinces them that to let go is to die, that without wealth they will be prey to a harsh world, that their power and dignity are tied forever to their hoard. Many who serve Mammon are aware, on some level, that they are prisoners, but the terror of freedom is greater than the pain of servitude. For some, the toll manifests not just in mental anguish, but in physical decline. The stress of constant striving, the sleepless nights guarding their assets, the unrelenting tension of suspicion and competition, all wear down the body. Illness, fatigue, and despair set in. But even then, Mammon's voice persists, urging them to push harder, to ignore the cost, to believe that just one more deal, one more acquisition, will make it all worthwhile. The body becomes as depleted as the soul, worn out in the service of a hunger that cannot be sated. Yet there are rare moments, brief and painful, when the illusion cracks. Perhaps in the face of death, or a catastrophic loss, the individual sees the truth, that all they have gained is dust, that the people they loved are gone, that their treasures have brought no peace. Mammon hates these moments, and works quickly to mend the illusion, offering new temptations, new justifications. But for some, the glimpse is enough to awaken a desire for something more. Escaping Mammon's grip is no easy feat, for it means confronting the self, admitting the emptiness, facing the pain of loss, and the fear of change. It means learning to value again what was once discarded: love, simplicity, compassion, the beauty of enough. In stories, this psychological battle can be the heart of a character's journey. A protagonist might begin with noble goals, only to be drawn deeper into Mammon's web, their mind slowly twisted by the demands of greed. Their relationships falter, their joy fades, and they find themselves alone, haunted by the realization that they have become what they once despised. The story might follow their descent, or it might trace their painful climb back to freedom, a journey that requires not just renouncing wealth, but reclaiming their soul from the shadow of fear and desire. Mammon's hold over the mind is not easily broken because it offers something that seems so close to what people want: control, safety, respect. But the truth is that Mammon offers none of these, only the endless illusion, the chase, the hunger. The psychological toll is not just in what he takes, but in what he convinces people to give away willingly: their peace, their integrity, their very sense of self. In the end, Mammon is not just a demon of gold, but a devourer of the mind, a force that turns the human heart against itself, binding it in chains forged from its own desires. Mammon's hand in the fall of civilizations is as subtle as it is catastrophic. His influence does not begin with thunderous proclamations or violent overthrows, but with the quiet whisper of desire, the seed of greed planted in the hearts of leaders, merchants, and common folk alike. It starts when values are weighed, not by virtue or wisdom, but by gold, when honor becomes a currency to be traded, and when the collective good is abandoned in favor of individual gain. Under Mammon's insidious guidance, great empires, mighty cities, and flourishing cultures slowly rot from within, their foundations hollowed by avarice, until they collapse under the weight of their own insatiable hunger. History, both real and imagined, is replete with examples of once glorious societies that fell to ruin, not because of enemies at their gates, but because of Mammon's relentless corrosion. In the beginning, these civilizations often shine brightly, built upon principles of justice, innovation, and unity. They rise through shared effort, with leaders and citizens alike, striving for the betterment of all. But as prosperity grows, so too does the temptation to claim more than one needs, to hoard rather than share, to see wealth not as a tool for collective growth, but as a symbol of personal power. Mammon slips in at this moment, cloaked in the allure of abundance, and begins his slow, patient work. Leaders, once devoted to the welfare of their people, begin to see their positions as means of personal enrichment. Laws are no longer crafted to ensure justice, but to protect the interests of the wealthy elite. Taxes are levied not to build, but to siphon resources upward, concentrating power and riches in the hands of a few. Mammon teaches that strength lies in possession, that those with the most gold deserve to rule, and that poverty is a mark of failure, not misfortune. The social contract phrase as trust in institutions erodes. People turn inward, concerned only with their own survival or advancement, and the bonds that once held the society together weaken. Commerce, the lifeblood of any civilization, becomes tainted under Mammon's rule. Trade, once an exchange of goods and culture, devolves into a ruthless competition for dominance. Merchants cheat, inflate prices, exploit labor, all in the pursuit of profit. Markets flourish with extravagance, but at their core, corruption festers. The pursuit of wealth becomes a fever, an obsession that blinds society to the growing inequality and injustice. Mammon fuels this fire, whispering that success is measured only in accumulation, that more is never enough, and that those who fail to keep up deserve their fate. Greed becomes not only accepted, but celebrated, and those who dare to speak of fairness or moderation are dismissed as naive or weak. As the gap between rich and poor widens, resentment brews. The working class, burdened by taxes, low wages, and dwindling opportunities, grows restless. Social mobility becomes a myth, a story told to pacify the masses while the elite tighten their grip on power. Mammon ensures that the system favors those already on top, creating barriers that prevent any challenge to the status quo. Desperation leads to unrest, protests, and eventually rebellion. Yet even as the fabric of society unravels, those under Mammon's sway refuse to see the truth. They cling to their wealth, believing that it will shield them from the chaos, that they can escape the consequences of their greed. Culture, too, suffers under Mammon's influence. Art, literature, and philosophy, once the soul of a civilization, become commodities. Artists create not to inspire or enlighten, but to sell. Innovation is stifled, as only profitable ventures are pursued. Education, once a pathway to wisdom, is reduced to a privilege for the wealthy, a tool to maintain their dominance. The collective imagination shrinks, focused solely on consumption, entertainment, and status. Mammon's vision is a world where creativity is measured in profit margins, where the highest good is luxury, and where the past is forgotten, in the race for ever greater excess. Eventually, the strain becomes too great. Infrastructure crumbles as public funds are diverted or squandered. The environment, exploited without restraint, begins to collapse, leading to famine, disease, and disaster. Enemies, once held at bay by unity and strength, see their opportunity and strike. But even without external threats, the civilization is already dying. Trust, the cornerstone of any society, has been eroded beyond repair. Communities disintegrate into factions, each vying for their share of the dwindling wealth. The elite, isolated in their opulence, are blind to the storm until it crashes through their gilded gates. Mammon does not mourn the fall of civilizations. To him, they are merely stages for his eternal play, arenas in which he can pit desire against reason, selfishness against solidarity. As one society falls, another rises, fresh and full of promise, ripe for the same seduction. He moves from one to the next, a patient gardener of ruin, knowing that wherever humans dream of wealth, he will find fertile ground. The fall of civilizations under Mammon's hand is not always total. Sometimes, remnants survive, fragments of culture, scattered communities that remember a different way. These survivors often bear the scars of Mammon's reign, wary of wealth, skeptical of power, longing for a return to simpler, more just ways of life. They tell stories of the fall, warnings to future generations about the price of unchecked greed. Yet even among them, Mammon waits, knowing that memory fades, that the allure of gold is eternal, and that given time, the cycle may begin anew. In a story, the fall of a civilization under Mammon's influence offers a rich tapestry of human drama. Characters might be caught at different points in the decline, a ruler clinging to power, a merchant chasing fortune, a scholar mourning the loss of truth, a rebel fighting for change. Their lives intersect in a world teetering on the edge, each choice a thread in the unraveling fabric. Through their eyes, the reader can witness the many faces of greed, the seductive, the desperate, the destructive, and the cost of a world that values wealth above all else. Such a narrative could explore not just the mechanics of decline, but the deeper questions. Can a society resist Mammon's pull? Is it possible to balance prosperity with virtue, ambition with compassion, or is greed an inevitable part of the human condition, a flaw that ensures no civilization can endure forever? These questions linger long after the last city falls, echoing through the ruins, a testament to the power and peril of Mammon's dominion. Mammon's most potent weapon is not force or terror, but the dazzling illusion of wealth and the false promises it carries. He does not need to coerce or frighten, for his power lies in seduction, in presenting gold and riches as the keys to happiness, fulfillment, and eternal satisfaction. Mammon does not merely tempt with material things. He offers a vision of life, where all desires can be met through accumulation, where status, love and even peace are bought, where to possess is to triumph. Yet behind this glittering veil lies emptiness, a void that no treasure can fill, for Mammon's riches are hollow, and those who chase them find themselves forever hungry, their souls gnawed by yearning. At the heart of Mammon's deception is the belief that wealth equates to worth. From the first coin earned, the first gem grasped, the individual begins to feel elevated, chosen, set apart. Mammon whispers that success is measured by what one owns, that those with more are better, more intelligent, more deserving. He wraps his victims in a sense of superiority, blinding them to the true sources of joy, connection, integrity, purpose. The more wealth they gather, the more they believe in its power to solve every problem, to secure every happiness. And so they chase it, believing they are rising ever higher, unaware that each step draws them deeper into his snare. This illusion is powerful, because it offers certainty in an uncertain world. Mammon promises that with enough gold, one can control fate, bend others to their will, protect oneself from harm. He sells the dream of invincibility, that money can shield from sorrow, from sickness, from fear. In truth, however, this pursuit only breeds greater anxiety. The more one has, the more one fears losing it. Riches become a burden, a source of constant vigilance. Friends are viewed with suspicion, opportunities with dread, and the joy that once accompanied wealth turns bitter. But Mammon ensures that instead of seeing the lie, the victim blames their unease on not having enough. If only they had more, they think, then they would finally be free. Mammon's illusion also thrives on comparison. He does not simply offer wealth, he breeds envy. His victims are never allowed to rest in their success, for there is always someone with more. The neighbor's house, the rival's fortune, the emperor's treasure, all become mirrors reflecting one's own inadequacy. Under Mammon's spell, contentment is impossible, for every gain is shadowed by the knowledge that someone else possesses greater riches. This relentless competition strips life of joy, turning it into a race with no finish line. The individual becomes trapped in a cycle of acquisition, not for need, not even for desire, but to outshine, to dominate, to prove their worth through possession. Even generosity becomes tainted by Mammon's touch. Acts of charity, once pure expressions of compassion, are twisted into displays of power, tools to enhance status. Giving becomes a performance, a means of control, a way to remind others of one's superiority. Mammon ensures that no act, however noble, escapes the shadow of self-interest. He turns virtue into vanity, making it seem that wealth can not only buy happiness, but also absolve guilt, earn praise, and secure a legacy. Yet the more the individual gives in this way, the more hollow they feel, for true connection cannot be purchased, and the love they seek through wealth remains out of reach. Mammon's deception extends beyond the individual to infect entire cultures. Societies under his sway glorify the rich, idolize the powerful, and dismiss the poor as failures. Success is equated with accumulation, and every aspect of life, from education to relationships, is shaped by the pursuit of more. Art, once a reflection of the soul, becomes a commodity. Nature, once revered, is reduced to resources. Time, the most precious of all gifts, is sacrificed on the altar of profit. In such a world, Mammon reigns supreme, his voice echoing in every transaction, every ambition, every dream corrupted by gold. And yet, despite the widespread belief in wealth's promise, those who achieve it often find themselves adrift. The mansions they build feel cold, the luxuries they acquire lose their luster, and the power they wield brings no peace. Mammon's greatest lie is that wealth will satisfy, but it cannot. It can distract, it can dazzle, but it cannot heal the wounds of the heart. Those who live by Mammon's creed often discover, too late, that they have spent their lives chasing shadows, forsaking what truly matters for illusions that vanish the moment they are grasped. There are moments, brief and painful, when the truth pierces the veil. A death, a betrayal, a loss, these can shatter the illusion, revealing the barrenness beneath the gold. In these moments, Mammon's victims may see the cost of their devotion, the friendships lost, the love forsaken, the self diminished. They may feel the ache of years spent in pursuit of what was never real, the regret of having traded joy for security, wonder for control. Yet even then, Mammon is cunning. He offers comfort in the form of more, another fortune, another triumph, a promise that this time it will be different. To break free of Mammon's grasp requires a profound awakening. It demands the courage to turn away from the glittering path, to seek value not in wealth but in truth. It means embracing vulnerability, accepting that life cannot be controlled through possession, that happiness comes not from having, but from being. Those who escape Mammon do so not by renouncing all wealth, but by seeing it for what it is, a tool, not a master, a means, not an end. They learn to cherish what cannot be bought, love, time, purpose, and to measure their lives not by what they own, but by who they are. In stories, the arc of Mammon's illusion offers a powerful narrative of temptation, fall, and redemption. A character seduced by the promise of wealth may rise swiftly, basking in glory, only to find themselves lost, their soul eroded by the very thing they sought. Their journey becomes one of discovery, as they peel away the layers of deception, confront the emptiness within, and seek to rebuild a life grounded in authenticity. Through their struggle, the story reveals not just the dangers of greed, but the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity to change, to seek light after darkness. Mammon's allure is timeless, because it speaks to a universal fear, the fear of not having enough, of not being enough. His power lies in exploiting this fear, in offering a simple solution to life's deepest questions: take more, and you will be whole. Yet his promise is a lie, and the treasures he offers are illusions that fade to dust. Those who see through the deception understand that true wealth lies in the heart, in the connections we forge, in the moments we cherish, in the love we give and receive. Mammon's illusion is strong, but it is not unbreakable, and in the end, it is the light of truth that reveals the path to freedom. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like and subscribe for more, and stay curious.